Good afternoon, this is Sean Golden with Golden & Golding. As we start to approach tax season, one of the common questions we get is, what is an Fbar? So why don't we go through the basics of the Fbar, foreign bank and financial account reporting, and how you can hopefully avoid foreign account reporting problems. Fbar Basics 101, right? Let's bring it down to the very basics. The Fbar is foreign bank and financial account reporting. It's used to report foreign bank and financial accounts each year to FinCEN. FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's the Internal Revenue Service that's tasked with enforcement. The type of accounts to report on the Fbar are numerous. It's not just bank accounts. That's what lots of people understandably think. It includes investment accounts, savings and checking accounts, of course, mutual fund and other type of trading fund accounts, pension accounts, life insurance, etc., etc. The Fbar is the more common form because it's been around since like 1970. But there's various other forms you may have to file as well. Another one you'll hear about often is FATCA, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, Form 8938. There's also plenty of other forms to report passive foreign investment companies, gifts, trusts, companies, entities, etc., etc. So what are three common, basic, important notes to know about the Fbar? First, what's the threshold, right? So it's $10,000, but it's not $10,000 per account. It's $10,000 in annual aggregate total. Example, David has 14 accounts that each have $1,500 in it. Even though not a single account is over $10,000, David has to report all the accounts because the annual aggregate total would exceed $10,000. Due date of the Fbar, it used to be June 30th several years ago. They changed it to April 15th. Now it's on what's called automatic extension, so it should be extended through October, but that's not automatic. You should check it each year, normally around the end of January, February, even March. IRS or FinCEN puts out a notice explaining when the due date is. Do you have to do the Fbar if you don't have to file a tax return? The answer is yes. Unlike some other forms, like the 8938, for example, you typically only file that if you're required to file a tax return. And a side note, don't just go and file the tax return so you could file the 8938. If you don't have to file the return, you typically don't have to file the 8938. The Fbar is different, even if it's not a tax form, right? It's a FinCEN form. You may have no income whatsoever. You still have to file the Fbar each year that you meet the threshold requirements for filing. Some other important basics about the Fbar. Common question. What happens if I have a joint account with a non-U.S. person? Someone lives in the U.S. or even abroad as a citizen or green card holder. Usually they may have a foreign parent or relative they share the account with. You do have to identify it as a joint or co-account. The amount of information you put in about the non-U.S. person, well, that's something to discuss with who's ever preparing the form. Different people do it differently. Unlike something like the Form 8938, and I refer to the 8938 a lot because there's a lot of overlap. But for that form, you have to have an interest in the account. For the Fbar, even if you just have signature authority or your sweet grandma put you on the account just in case because she trusts you the most out of all your siblings, right? Or your employee put you on, your employer, put you on there so that you can sign for things of that nature. You still have to report even though you don't have ownership of the account. Common question, right? What happens if I close the account in the current year? Either you closed or you thought, hey, oh dear, I don't want to have to file this form. If I just close all my accounts now, I don't have to file. That doesn't really work. Let's use dates to keep it simple. If you have an account open that's been open, not necessarily opened in 2022, but it was still open in 2022, in 2020, and you closed it in 2022 at some point, in 2023, when you're filing your 2022 Fbar, right, like the tax return, you file it in the subsequent year, you would include the accounts on there that closed as long as they were open at least for a day in 2022. Going forward, if you didn't have any accounts open in 2023, then in 2024, when it's time to file your 2023 Fbar, well, hooray, you don't have to file, right, because you don't have any foreign accounts. The big issue with Fbar is when you're out of compliance for prior years. That's what we specialize in here. If you're out of compliance, there's various amnesty programs you can use to get into compliance. Please beware of fear-mongering firms that write in big red about how you better hurry up and call them or else you're going to go to prison, right? It doesn't work that way. 95% of the time, if there's a violation, it's going to be civil and it's going to be non-willful. Voluntary Voluntary disclosure program is for people who are either willful or can't certify under penalty of perjury that they're non-willful. If you are non-willful, there's various other programs available. Streamlined filing compliance procedures that gets broken down further into domestic offshore and foreign offshore. Both for foreign accounts, it's just domestic is for non-foreign residents. That's how they term it. You also have reasonable cause and delinquency procedures, and there's the delinquent FBAR submission procedures, in which if it's only the FBAR, you can normally still skate with no penalty. If you have various other forms you have to do, then it's the delinquent international information return submission procedures. They got rid of that. Well, they modified the program in November of 2020. It's no longer an absolute penalty waiver. We have lots of free information available on our main website and our sub-websites. You can always reach out and schedule a reduced fee initial consultation if it's something that's appropriate and that we handle here. We only specialize in the offshore disclosure and compliance. Again, my name is Sean Golding with Golding & Golding. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.